back to the show. I'm Phil Vischer. This is Phil Vischer Podcast for the week of next
August?
week.
Oh, yeah.
We were trying to be more specific. It's for the week of
August 4th. 4th.
August, for the week of August 4th. You're here with us and Christian Taylor.
Hey, Phil.
Hi. Fuchsia.
I tried to confuse you today.
Fuchsia and denim.
Yep.
Okay, I'm with you. Sky, what's your last name?
Sky Taylor?
I almost
oh,
said
no.
Sky
What just
Taylor.
happened here?
My goal one day is to just be known as Sky.
Sky.
let's
what
do
you
that.
Like
Sting?
Cher,
Like
Sting. Right, yeah.
Bono,
I want to
Edge.
own that name.
How about
Yeah.
The Sky, like The Edge?
That could work.
well,
The Sky.
That's a little pompous. Don't you
I
think?
am The Sky.
I am. It's like I am the state.
And then I'll change my name to The Land. And you can be the sea.
Absolutely.
well, actually, this
that
is
works.
my given name is Akash, which
Yeah.
means sky. My brother's Hindi name is Sagar, which means ocean. And my younger brother, who died when I was little, his name was Peter, which means rock. So we had kind of
That's
rock.
really interesting. I like it. I'm the
Well,
ocean.
my brother's name, I'm named Rock, and he's named Paper, and my sister is Scissors.
When you get in
So-
arguments, it's fun to see how
Nasty.
these. I'm just trying to put Taco the Bell here on my phone. That's why I'm
Okay.
distracted.
So, we're here. I need to do the theme song. I got some requests, but I'm going to ignore them and just sing the theme song. Just because that. Actually, I had to do 4 hours of Pa Grape yesterday for the next VeggieTales episode.
And remind
which
us how he sounds.
kinda, Hi, I'm Pa Grape. How are ya?
Oh, man.
Do you know how many songs I had to record?
How many?
7.
That is a lot.
It was crazy, and it almost killed me.
Well, don't do that today then.
No, I won't do that today. So, but Pa Grape could sing. I'm still in Pa Grape mode, so I guess he could just sing the theme song.
Just do it real
Hey,
quick.
it's a podcast. What do you know? Hey, it's a podcast. And let's do it. Hey, we got video. Hey, it's a podcast. So end it here. The Phil Vischer Podcast starts right here. We'll talk to Sky
Hello, Pa.
and Christian too.
Hi, Pa.
And maybe a guest. No, wait out. They died. Not here for you. Hey, it's a podcast, so end it here. The Phil Vischer Podcast starts right here. The Phil Vischer Podcast starts right here.
Ooh, I like that. We jumped an octave.
Yeah, it was funny because the new VeggieTales DVD that they're working on, which I can't say what it is because I don't think they've announced it yet, but because they're not owned by DreamWorks is helping them find creative talent to use. And so the songs for this new one are written by 2 Broadway composers.
Wow.
A composing team.
What is their previous work?
I don't know.
How do you
Nothing we
feel
would
about
recognize?
that? These are like your babies.
No, they haven't been my babies in years.
I know.
My babies.
But do you ever have a twinge, or are they completely grown and gone?
It's been a decade, so they've grown up. They moved out of the house. They have their own families. Sometimes they visit at Christmas, but not that often.
Those vegetables have been cut from the vine and transplanted.
Yeah. So these 2 Broadway composers wrote 7 songs. Actually, they said because they've done 3 different versions of the script because they were having trouble with it. So they said in total they've probably written 20 songs for the different versions of the
I
scripts.
wonder if they're anywhere near as good as yours.
They're definitely more Broadway-y
Okay.
because I just recorded 7 of them.
How do you do Broadway songs with characters that have no legs to kick?
Yeah, it's tricky.
You don't have
Really?
to be a kick line in all of Broadway.
Not all of Broadway.
That's just Radio
kicks.
City.
If I don't see a kick line, I haven't really been to Broadway.
Oh, have you seen Fiddler on the Roof?
Oh, what a
There's
great
kicks.
musical.
Well,
There's lots of kicks.
There's kicking. It's more like jumping.
Yeah, it's Pa Grape kind of
different.
kicks.
Yeah, it's Pa
Right.
Grape. I think Pa Grape should do Fiddler on the Roof.
He'd be awesome.
Yeah.
If I were a rich man, that would be
It'd
fun.
be great.
Except I would die if I had to do more than one show a week.
I thought you were only doing Bob.
No. For the TV stuff, for a while, the new TV stuff that's going to show up on Netflix, I was only going to do Bob, and then we changed it, and I'm doing most of my characters, except Mr. Nezer, who was dropped out of that and replaced with Ickabeezer.
That's a new
Nezer.
character.
Yeah, new character.
Ickabeezer? Instead of like Ebenezer?
Yes.
Ickabeezer.
Yeah, that's a new. Yeah. So anyway,
I had a friend named Ick.
So I'm doing most of my characters
Short for Iqbal.
in the TV thing, and I still do all my characters. But this wasn't a TV thing. This was a DVD that I
Okay.
did yesterday in Nashville. But I saw all my old buddies. Mike was there, Tim Hodge was there, Kurt Heineke was there.
Oh, how fun.
It was like old
home week.
Yeah, it was like the Prairie Home Companion.
Got the band all back together.
Mike Naraki finally has gray hair.
Oh, wow.
He resisted having any gray hair for so long, and we're the same age exactly.
Wow.
And I don't know if you noticed, I have a little gray hair.
A little bit.
You know, I was actually looking at an old video just yesterday from just a couple years ago from What's in the Bible.
Yeah.
And I think it was episode 1, and you had a lot less gray hair.
No.
Yeah.
No, not
Yeah.
just.
Have you gone and watched your own videos recently?
Are you saying that if someone watches the entire What's in the Bible series,
I am.
they
They'll
will
see
see
you age?
the age
Yes, they
before their
will.
eyes?
Yes, they will.
Did you hear about that movie
just
with
like
the boy aging?
Richard Linklater's Boy movie. It's called Boy.
It's called Boy, yeah.
Because they shot it over 12
I
years.
think it's
Right.
fascinating.
I haven't seen it, but it's supposed to be good.
I haven't either, but-
Although somewhat slow, because he doesn't really do plot.
Well, you don't
so
grow
much.
fast.
Well, he doesn't do plot
Oh.
very much, so it's more lyrical.
So that was Linkletters. I didn't realize that.
Yes, Linklater.
Linklater.
Because it's an A-T-E-R.
Okay.
Link later.
Yeah,
Link.
so yeah.
We'll link up later.
Yes, that's when my webpage isn't working. Come back and link later. Okay, so you had some stuff you wanted to talk about. Oh, why aren't we at Okoboji?
Oh,
We
yeah,
said
that's
last
the
week
first
that
thing.
we were going to be at Okoboji. Yes, but we recorded this podcast right before we left for Okoboji. So the one we record, you're watching this one after we recorded at Okoboji, but you won't see the Okoboji one until next week.
Correct.
Does that make sense to everybody?
Yes.
They're leaving for Okoboji tomorrow.
Yes, except as you watch this, we're there at Okoboji,
And have left.
and we've already done the podcast. And then you'll see that the
Yes.
next week. Okay.
Okay.
And
So
you're
that was
going
the
to
first
New
thing.
York.
I am going to New York. I'm going to New York August.
So there'll be a Christian in New York.
There will be a Christian in New York, believe it or not.
I'm kidding. There's lots of Christians.
New
I
York
have friends
City,
there.
Manhattan to be exact.
Yeah.
So I have sort of a day. I'm going there for work, and I've got a project on the 12th and 14th. But the 13th, I'm kind of free. So I was going to do a coffee at the Red Flame in Manhattan. I will give you the address. It is, oh gosh, now I have to look it up. 67 West 44th Street. It's the Red Flame in Midtown.
That doesn't sound like a wholesome gathering
Flame.
place for
It does sound a little devilish. I'll give you that.
Red Flame.
And I have
Isn't that
never
where
been
Bette
there.
Midler started out playing the Red
I think that's where the American Atheist Society, Satanist, has
yeah,
their
the
meetings
American,
ever
yeah.
since they
Well,
got.
that's a perfect
yeah.
place for us to have a meet and greet with Christian Taylor.
Okay.
That's after they got.
So
So-
someone could show up there
Yeah, if you want to show up, ask me anything about Phil and Sky or ask me about the podcast
at the
or
Red Flame.
Red Flame.
At what time?
9 a.m.
9 a.m.
August 13th.
August 13th.
And you could send a message to me through Phil's Facebook page and just say, hey, I'll meet you there.
Okay.
Or you can go to my website, which is meetchristiantaylor.com. And there's
Meet
a place.
Christian Taylor at theredflame.com.
Exactly. So you can come and meet
Fantastic.
Christian Taylor at the Red Flame. Just let me know you're coming, and I will probably look pretty much like I do now. Just not wearing
Well, if
the
people are
exact
listening
same
to
thing.
this, they'd have no idea what you look like.
I
Good
think-
point.
I think
You
you
could
sh-
go to my website and see what I
Yes.
look like.
Yeah.
And then you would have to come up and introduce yourself.
Yeah, right. Okay. Well, I hope that goes well.
Thanks.
I hope
And if nobody shows up,
you'll have
I'll
breakfast.
have breakfast in quiet.
at the Red
and I'll
Flame
listen to the podcast.
with Bette Midler.
You know, if someone wanted to assassinate you,
They would know how.
they would now know where you are.
Well, they could also find that on my website.
this is why they don't release the president's schedule in advance.
Right.
You know, there's one other thing I wanted to explain while you're.
What's that? What's up?
So I wanted to explain why I play Clash of Clans because I did get a listener who
do we-
wrote me and said,
Do we care?
"Well,
Someone
I care.
cares?
It's important to me." They
Okay.
wanted to join my clan, and I just wanted to say I talked to my son about this. This is a family clan, and the reason that I play Clash of Clans is to be with my kids. And
Okay.
I can't, I don't have fun with video games, but this I can do. It's
So
just
if you're a stranger, she doesn't want to play Clash of Clans with you.
that isn't true.
That's what she's saying.
That's
just
not
doesn't
what I'm
want you
saying.
in
She just
her
wants to
clan.
have breakfast with you in New York.
That's not
but
what I'm
not
saying.
play anonymously online.
I actually talked to my son about that, and he
Yeah.
said if you're a high enough clan member, you're welcome to join.
Yeah, really.
Not that kind of high.
That
but
doesn't sound very Christian.
you have to, if
you're
you're,
a
if you're a
high
heavy hitter in Clash of Clans, please let me
okay.
know. We'd love to have you join.
This is complicated. I don't even know what Clash of
I don't
Clans
either.
is.
You guys are just not
is
as hip as me.
Is it like Plants vs. Zombies?
I like that game.
Sadly, it's like Farmville.
One year, my wife and I in Halloween
It's Farmville
went as
for
that.
teenagers.
We went as Plants vs. Zombies.
That's a
Did you?
yeah,
great
she was
costume.
the plant, I was the zombie.
That's awesome.
You guys are nuts.
I guess you didn't have kids yet.
No, we did.
Oh, what'd they go as?
They went as different apps also. One went as Fruit Ninja. One went as Cut the Rope and Angry Birds.
That's awesome. You guys have the best Halloween costumes ever. What are you doing this year?
I don't think we've decided.
You haven't planned
The
it?
problem is, for 4 or 5 days after Halloween this year, we're leaving for Africa.
Oh,
So
That's a lot
I don't know
to
if
plan
we're
You
going to
should
have
go
a...
trick-or-treating as people packing for Africa.
you should. That's a great idea, Phil.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, you done?
One other thing.
Oh, okay. One other thing.
There's another thing.
I have a confession.
Yeah.
Is this the right forum for this?
I think it is. I hope it is.
Okay.
Okay. I woke up this morning with Sky.
Oh, heavens.
He was in my bed.
Our first podcast scandal.
Okay. Explain.
Call the elders.
Let me explain. Let me
yourself.
explain. So this morning, I couldn't wait to grab my phone when I woke up
Because it's August 1st.
because it was August 1st. And guess what?
What?
I didn't go to Clash of Clans and check my castle yet.
Yeah.
Your morning has been redeemed.
It has been. I went to my email and bing, there was a devotional
From Sky.
from Sky Jatani
Written just for you.
written just for me.
That's fantastic.
And it really was good.
Good.
It was quite a blessing. And
Okay. For those of you who may not have listened last week, I've launched an online email devotional that goes out every day, and you can subscribe to it on my website, skyjatani.com.
And I highly recommend it.
Yeah, I did too. I subscribed to it, and I got it this morning, and I read it.
So you woke up with Sky too?
All the cool kids are doing it.
I wouldn't put it on that footing.
Yes.
Okay.
I get around.
Now I'm done.
I'm going to start the show now, if that's okay with everybody. I got a letter from someone who asked what I thought was an interesting question that I thought was worth asking. This was from Drew, who's a listener, who said, I have a question I hope you could address in your podcast. I have recently begun buying DVD versions of Christian children's programs from my childhood. I realize that many of these products were direct to VHS, now DVD, and in such were released one episode at a time over a number of years. I also understand that in some cases the production was very expensive and that these shows don't have big network budgets or advertisement product placement. It is said that Last Chance Detectives cost up to $1 million per episode. I don't think so, but maybe close. It was in being released that way rather than pitched on TV. I understand that paying those who work on the projects is a factor in the cost. When a new project is released, such as What's in the Bible or CBN's new Superbook, it's important to charge a fair price to ensure that those involved are paid. What I cannot understand is why shows that have been out of production for 10 or more years are still charging $15 to $30 for a half-hour DVD. I know the DVD duplication costs are below $1.50 per DVD. Each episode could be its own for $5 for 4 episodes for $10 and still make a profit. Additionally, you're now spreading God's word to more children because more people can afford it. While I will buy What's in the Bible directly from your site because I understand that it's an ongoing financial venture, I will not pay $15 for one episode of a cartoon. I don't think he really said it like this, but I'm enjoying myself. For one episode of a cartoon released almost 30 years ago, which is likely paid for itself multiple times over. So what I'm asking is, why are costs so high for these shows so many years out of production? Are they still high costs to be paid off that I am ignorant of? Or are these Christian companies more interested in profit than spreading the word because they know that our morality keeps us from illegally downloading their programs?
Sorry, that last bit made me laugh.
That is
That would make
Those
sense.
Christians are moral consumers, so we'll gouge them.
that's a good question, Drew Burke.
A lot of good questions in there.
In
actually.
many cases, so let's address that. Like VeggieTales episodes, the old episodes obviously have long paid for themselves. Long ago. But they're still, $15, $12, whatever. Why is that? Typically, for a number of reasons. It may be that the entity that produced the video actually has no control over the pricing of the video. In other words, it's being sold by a distributor. The distributor sets the price because that's how the distribution company makes their money. You mentioned some things that are specifically ministry, like the stuff that Focus on the Family put out. The stuff that Focus on the Family put out, so why didn't they start giving it away or making it very, very cheap once it was paid for? Because they used the profits from McGee and Me or Last Chance Detectives to help fund Focus on the Family, basically to fund the ministry. So most entities that release or produce DVDs are ongoing businesses, and they look at the same way if you make feature films. If you make 10 feature films, probably 6 of them will lose money. So you're looking at the other 4 or maybe even 3 that make money. They have to pay for the ones that lose money and pay for all the overhead and pay the salaries of everyone back in the office. So typically, whoever is releasing Christian product, because you could ask the same thing about Bibles. I'm pretty sure Zondervan has made their money back on the NIV translation.
I would guess they have.
By
yes.
now.
Yes.
And yet they haven't dropped the price of their Bibles. Why? Because Zondervan is an ongoing business, and they use the profits from the NIV Bible to fund the other stuff they're doing that isn't making money.
Or new ventures that can't possibly make money yet are
Right.
funded by the profits from the
Right.
existing products.
So there is usually an ongoing business behind what the DVD, and they want those to keep making money so they can offset losses in other parts of their business. That's typically how it works. With what's in the Bible, we will reformat it in different forms. It'll eventually be a box set. It'll eventually be digital in different ways. But still, the goal is that not only is it doing good ministry, but it's also bringing in revenue to help us make more films, so that we don't always have to go out hat in hand begging for money to make every film we want to make. Does it make sense? How's that? How did I do, Drew? Is that okay? Okay, let me know if you
that
found
was
that.
an interesting little lesson in Christian
Christian economics.
economics. Yeah.
Because we've had people say, with Jelly Telly, which is $5 a month to subscribe. She said, why do I have to pay for this? This is Christian ministry. It should be free. Mm-hmm. And I kind of want to go back and say, so when you walk into a Christian bookstore and you pick up a brand new, NIV, you say, why isn't this free? Why aren't these Bibles free? Why aren't these books? Why isn't everything? Because it doesn't work. You can't. People have to make the things, and you have to pay for the things. And then if it's an ongoing business that's trying to make more, they want to use the revenue generated from one product to fund other products. So they tend to run them as businesses.
I think this is why Christians' businesses oftentimes have a very difficult time making a go of it. Because you have this tension between doing it as a ministry and running a business. Because if you don't run it as a business, you can't do your ministry.
Right.
But a lot of people would rather just pray that God will bring the rain. And
now, Drew, do you remember Keith Green, the singer-songwriter Keith Green?
I do.
He died when he was 30, the year I got my driver's license, in a plane crash.
He taught me to pray that I was a sheep and not a goat.
We'll get into that later. He did something. He had 2 or 3 albums and was becoming popular and was doing tours, and things were going well. And suddenly he made the announcement, I will no longer charge money for my albums. All you have to do now is send me whatever you can afford, and I'll send you an album. And he felt that was his ministry stance, that's what they were going to do, which was a great thing. And I sent money for the albums. I sent him, $15 or whatever we thought was fair at the time for the album. Other people resented that because he was already successful. Their argument was he can actually afford to do that and still keep going. And it makes us look bad because we can't afford to do that. We can't make the albums. They have no way of, we can't do that. So now we look like we're not altruistic because we're actually charging for our albums. And that's always, whether you do free will offerings for your concerts or whether you sell tickets, you have the same tension. We can't afford to do this if we can't predict how much money is going to come back in because we have to pay the crew. And if you just do a free will offering, you just here, we got $7. So there's tension, which brings us to commercialism in the church, which is a whole nother topic.
That is a big topic. So
It's a big, hairy monster.
yes. To Drew's defense, though, I'm certainly enmeshed in that whole world, too, of publishing, and Christianity today is frequently wrestling with how do we serve the church and yet do it in a sustainable way economically. And I face this as a writer, as a speaker, all that sort of stuff. But to his defense, there are a lot of abuses, too, within the system, especially in the nonprofit side or on the part of churches that can take commercialism way too far.
Right.
And it's very distasteful, and I get the heebie-jeebies about it sometimes too. So it's not all
typically. I mean, there are cases where there is someone who's just making way too much money behind the scenes and living, a lifestyle that's not very biblical. That's not very common. Typically, there is an organization behind the scenes that's trying to pay the bills and would like to put away some profits in the bank so they're not always worrying about making payroll going forward, and so they can fund other projects. So typically, there are cases where it really is an ugly situation. Typically, it's not. It's someone trying to sustain a ministry by having one item, and kids' videos were hot in the 80s and 90s specifically for that reason, because people were buying them like crazy. So a ministry like Focus on the Family that made a successful kids' video could actually generate a lot of income to support the rest of their ministry. And if they started giving away the kids' videos, they'd have to shut down other parts of their ministry that didn't generate any revenue at all, but they still wanted to run. Okay. Satanists troll Hobby Lobby.
Dun, 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 dun.
Our friend Lucian Greaves.
You remember, you got to do it in your voice.
Lucian Greaves. We talked about him before. He's the one who wanted to put on a black mass at Harvard.
And they ended up going to the Hong Kong cafe.
And they ended up hanging out at the Hong Kong cafe with, I forget the guy's
Fred.
name. Fred.
Was it Fred?
Yeah, it was Fred at the Hong Kong cafe. Anyway, Lucian Greaves and his son Draco Malfoy
and their house elf.
and their house elf Dobby couldn't stand being out of the news. So they came up with something else to do. The Satanic Temple, a diabolical denomination, this is from The Atlantic, announced it's seeking a religious exemption for people who live in states with informed consent laws that require doctors to share certain information with women before they get an abortion. This sometimes includes materials about, quote, the link between abortion and breast cancer, as well as claims regarding a depressive post-abortion syndrome. The Satanic Temple claims, which they see as scientifically unfounded and medically invalid, and therefore an affront to their religious beliefs.
That's a convoluted pathway.
Religious beliefs, you ask? Would that be an affront to? Objections to informed consent laws are not new, but the Satanist tactic is. They're invoking the Supreme Court's ruling in the Hobby Lobby case, which said that closely held businesses with religious objections to contraceptives cannot be required to cover them in the insurance they provide to their employees. The Satanic Temple is inverting the context of that ruling. It believes in a woman's right to get an abortion without having to listen to information its members see as non-scientific. This is rooted in the group's belief in a scientific understanding of the world. So if you're a Satanist, you look at the world scientifically.
Actually, that's not true. Is it? Because if you're a Satanist, you are pledging allegiance to what at least Judeo-Christian tradition would say is a fallen angel, an angelic being. That is not a scientific worldview.
If a fallen angel that loves to do science experiments in hell.
It's one giant Bunsen burner.
Yeah, so even The Atlantic.
The jokes could go on forever.
Oh, yeah.
The Atlantic says the organization's legal claims don't really hold up.
You think?
Because, as it turns out, it's not really satanic.
Come up with a legitimate satanic reason not to.
Their other problem is
informed
that
consent.
The Satanic Temple wants to extend this exemption to all women who share our deeply held belief. And legal scholars say this undermines the organization's claim. If these are people who are not members of the Satanic Temple or adherents to Satanism, then their basis for objecting may not be religious. If you're going to raise a religious claim, you have to have a religious point of view. And this is where things get a little tricky for the Satanic Temple.
The funny thing is they're trying to base this on the Hobby Lobby ruling.
Yes.
And where there's a total disconnect is in the Hobby Lobby case, the Green family, the owners of Hobby Lobby, were not saying no one can ever have birth control.
Right.
Because we don't like it.
Right.
They said we don't want to have to pay for these certain types of birth control because it violates our religious convictions.
Right. And the ruling was that the government can accomplish the same thing in another way that does not infringe on their religious liberty.
Correct. But in this case, this so-called Satanist group is saying informed consent laws should be denied, or the informed consent should not be allowed by doctors to anybody, even if they're not part of our religious group. So it's akin to Hobby Lobby saying nobody should have birth control because we disagree with it.
And this is where things get a little tricky for the Satanic Temple, says The Atlantic. As Gideon Resnick wrote in The Atlantic in February, Lucian Greaves, quote unquote, is actually a pseudonym used by a man named Douglas Mesner, and he isn't actually much into Satan worship. He actually
He's
said,
a fraud.
I think that idea is silly. I can't even conceive of that actually being the case. That he would be into satanic worship. So in short, if the Satanic Temple took this to court, it would probably have a hard time showing that informed consent laws are a violation of its sincerely held religious beliefs rather than just a group of people's political views.
So let me get this straight. Lucian Graves is really Douglas Mesner, and he's created this whole Satan Temple thing just as
Do you know how many members the Satanic Temple has?
How many?
The denomination?
How many?
He estimates about 20.
So they've just organized
family.
themselves around this idea just to be an annoyance.
A fly in the ointment.
To religious folks.
He's
around
a provocateur. I think
Provocateur, that's a great word.
You would call him a provocateur.
Did he respond to
his
this
son,
article at all?
Draco Malfoy. No, he did not respond to this, and his house elf Dobby. But
He's been practicing
Dobby
this.
just wants a sock. That's all he wants. He's just
He wants love,
He wants to
actually.
show up until somebody gives him clothes and he can leave. Because then he wants to become a Christian. He told me, Dobby. Except, can he? Because he's not related to Adam and Eve, is he?
Oh, no.
This brings
That
us
brings
to
us
our
to
next-
another
Oh,
story.
here we go.
I know where you're
Okay.
going with this.
Okay, I like Ken Ham. Can I say that?
You do?
not.
I like Ken Ham.
Why? What do you like
you met
about
him?
him?
No, I haven't met him.
Then how can you like him?
He's sincere. He seems
Okay.
like a nice guy.
Okay.
He's Australian. He's got the accent.
You like how he talks.
You can't do an Australian
No, I'm
accent.
not very good at Australian
You
accent.
keep slipping back into a Brit.
I know. I'm sorry.
So you like
Anyway,
Ken Ham?
Ken Ham. And remember how
You know what I like?
What?
Ken Ham and eggs.
Okay. That's great. Okay. So remember a few weeks ago when I kind of went off on NASA for saying we're just 20 years away from discovering aliens.
I do remember
just
that.
20 years away.
It was a bee in your bonnet.
Yes. Well, that bugged Ken Ham too,
Oh, it did.
but for different reasons.
Why? What reasons?
So Ken Ham says he wrote a paper because it was the 45th anniversary of the Apollo 11 mission
Yes.
when we landed on the moon. Ken Ham, president and founder of the creationist organization Answers in Genesis, wrote a blog post calling for the end of the U.S. space program. Why? Well, according to Ham, who runs the Creation Museum in Kentucky, there's no point in spending money on finding extraterrestrial life for a couple of reasons. First, the search is a deliberate rebuking of God.
What?
And second, because aliens are already damned to hell.
He did not really say that.
That's not a quote. This is Salon.com paraphrasing what he said.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay, give us the quote.
What is the
Okay.
quote?
Ken Ham wrote, I'm shocked at the countless hundreds of millions of dollars that have been spent over the years in the desperate and fruitless search for extraterrestrial life. Of course, secularists are desperate to find life in outer space as they believe that would provide evidence that life can evolve in different locations given the supposed right conditions.
No.
So-
Secularists are looking for life on other planets because they need new markets
For what?
to sell
To
stuff.
sell stuff.
They're probably
This is
naked. They
Mr.
need
You're saying
clothing.
Consumer
secularists
man.
are also consumerists?
Yes, yeah.
So they're all the
That's
man
why Nixon went to China
to play ping pong.
to sell
with
stuff.
Forrest Gump.
We
I
need
saw
to
it.
Open
He
up
went
new.
to China to play ping pong with Forrest Gump,
Right.
who was our star ping pong player.
That was a movie.
And then he started.
That didn't happen.
But I ate at his restaurant.
That did.
It was real.
No, not really.
Yeah, you're saying I did not eat at his restaurant?
I'm saying you're living in a world of your imagination.
You know, I read the book Forrest Gump. It's dramatically different. Than
Is it
the,
really?
The book came first.
Yeah.
Really?
Usually
Very, very different.
Usually works that way.
Not-
Different good or
Sky.
different bad?
Different.
Do you know that the Bible actually came before the Bible miniseries? Came first. Yeah, that's how it usually happens.
So
his first point is, first of all, the only reason they want to find aliens is so that they can prove that life could evolve on Earth. So we should.
So he thinks it's an attack on Christianity.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
so. Yeah. His second point is, even if there were aliens, there's a huge theological problem because they're not related to Adam and Eve, therefore not covered by the blood of Christ, therefore they can't receive salvation.
So what's the point if we can't
they're-
preach the gospel to
they're-
them and save them?
They're going to heck in a handbag or a saucer.
That is such terrible logic.
I see what he's saying.
Well, Okay.
I see what he's saying, and I would stand by my Larry Norman quote from the last time I talked about
what was
this.
that?
If there's life on other planets, then I'm sure that he must know and has been there once already and has died to save their souls.
That's what I would say, too.
So what Ken Ham is basically saying is that what we know of the gospel in the Bible would have to apply to every possible situation anywhere
He's
in
putting
all of
God in a
reality.
box.
And that Jesus could not have shown up somewhere else in a different form, or there's a different Adam and Eve. Basically, you could say, okay, if God created life on more than one planet, he also created Adam and Eve's on more than one planet of whatever form.
God can do anything he
and
wants.
then appeared as the Son of God on whatever planet in whatever form.
Okay. Here's,
Yeah. Am I in theological thin ice?
I think you're not even on the same ocean there. With,
Okay.
but Ken Ham says that we shouldn't continue the space program, and then he gives these ridiculous reasons. I think that you could actually make a really compelling Christian argument for why you shouldn't continue the space program.
I think you can make a secular one as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, if he were to say, hey, you know what, we spend millions or millions or billions or how much we've spent on the space program over the years, while at the same time 1 billion people on this planet live in abject poverty,
Yeah.
or X number of children die every year from preventable disease, or how many other
You don't think
things can
aliens are going to hell is a good argument against the space program?
No, not really. It's not an argument that's going to make Christians look any more compassionate, intelligent, or in any way attractive.
You know, Larry Norman also criticized the lunar landing. Actually, I'm just remembering this in another one of his songs from like 1970.
Okay.
What did he say?
He said we spent like $3 billion to go to the moon, and all we got was a bunch of rocks. Must have been nice rocks.
Wow.
See, he was a prophet in all directions.
Except I do think there's value in how far, in the things we've gleaned from
There's
traveling
value
to
in
and from
exploration.
Yeah,
Yes.
there's value in
Yeah.
exploration, and I think we've learned a lot of things and gained a lot from doing that
We
exploration.
have Tang.
We have lots of things.
We have Tang.
and we have freeze dried ice cream.
Do we still have Tang?
Yeah, we do.
There's
think
still
there is.
Tang somewhere?
I know, but
Yeah.
I mean, no,
I buy
there's
it to make
Yeah.
look, we
Russian tea.
would not have Google Maps if we didn't put satellites
and we
into
wouldn't
space.
have GPS.
Right. There's a lot of
there's a lot of very
So
relevant
are you
things.
saying that
but
science does good things?
yes.
This is our last story today. Young children who are exposed to religion have a hard time differentiating between fact and fiction, according to a new study published in the July issue of Cognitive Science.
Don't most children have difficulty distinguishing? How old are these children?
5 and 6.
Oh, good grief.
5 and 6. Researchers presented 5 and 6-year-old children from both public and parochial schools with 3 different types of stories. 3 different types: religious, fantastical, and realistic, in an effort to gauge how well they could identify. I wonder what was the motivation behind this study. What was someone saying, I got to figure this out because I'm noticing something disturbing? To gauge how well they could identify narratives with impossible elements as fictional. The study found that of the 66 participants, so we got a very small pool, 66 kids, children who went to church or were enrolled in a parochial school were significantly less able than secular children to identify supernatural elements, such as talking animals, as fictional. So there's a premise here, first of all, that all supernatural elements should be identified as fictional.
Right.
Because there's no such thing as supernatural. So obviously, if you grow up with Bible stories and talking donkeys and
Talking vegetables.
Noah's Ark, yeah, and that makes it even worse.
Then,
When talking vegetables are telling you the Bible stories that you're supposed to believe.
you have screwed up so many children.
In both studies, children exposed to religion were less likely to judge the characters in the fantastical stories as pretend. And they made more appeals to reality and fewer appeals to impossibility than did secular children. Refuting previous hypotheses claiming that children are born believers, in other words, they just believe anything, the authors suggest that religious teaching, especially exposure to miracle stories, leads children to a more generic receptivity toward the impossible.
So let me get this straight.
Here's a question.
Let me get this straight.
Yeah.
Children who are raised with a strong religious
With a belief in the supernatural.
in the belief system
are more likely
are more likely to believe
in the supernatural.
in the supernatural and that more things are possible
Yes.
in this world.
Yeah.
Well, that's just terrible.
That is kind of how I concluded. It's like, is this a bad thing?
Do we really want to drive our children to a place of
Of despair.
Nothing's possible, and there's no wonder in the world, and there's no magic behind anything. I mean, Disney's whole philosophy with children is to teach them there's magic in this world, right?
And animals talk.
And it can be bought for $100 ticket into the Magic Kingdom.
And your toys come to life when you walk out of your bedroom.
Right.
Yeah. It does make you, well, a couple of things I wonder. How do they track when they're 8 years old? 10 years old, you know, 12 years old. Because obviously I have a lot of friends that grew up very religious, and they don't seem to have a hard time separating fact from fiction when they read stories. So they still seem to get there to a rational place. Is there a problem with 5 and 6 year olds being more open to supernatural occurrence? Historically, most scientists believe in the supernatural, historically, up until the last 150 years. So that doesn't seem, we don't have a track record of religious belief preventing rational inquiry until really the last 50 years or so, when it became political, when it became more about, so I think politics has messed up religion more than religion has messed up politics. Ooh,
I agree with that.
Bold statement.
I agree with that. And I also think there is probably a political agenda behind the study in the first place.
You know, are you worried about your kids being influenced by miracle stories to be too accepting of non-facts?
No, I want my kids well into adulthood believing that things in this world that seem insurmountable can be overcome.
Through human ingenuity and
God acting in this world,
and by dreaming big dreams
through His grace
and holding on to your dreams.
We're not going there today. We're not going there today. But I mean, think about where would we be if adults grew up to think that the only things that are possible are what we've already seen?
That'd be so boring.
We would never achieve anything as a species.
Never try to do anything.
So, and Christian faith is simply saying that God inhabiting His people with the power of His Spirit can do good, wonderful, glorious, compassionate, loving, world-changing things. And sometimes He does those things even apart from us through the miraculous, gracious intervention of His power in the world. And that's not a bad thing to believe. That's a hopeful vision of the world.
Oh, that was beautiful. Next week from Okoboji. See you then.